Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the special City Council meeting of the City of International Falls and also the special International Falls Economic Development Authority meeting. We'll start tonight with the International Falls Economic Development Authority. We will move into the City Council meeting, which is a special City Council meeting. The purpose of the City Council meeting this evening is to approve the 2020 preliminary budget and levy. We will be considering a maintenance worker vacancies for the Public Works Department. We will be adopting a resolution declaring a vacancy for mayor, and we will have a conversation on how to fill that vacancy. With that being said, we'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. Please rise.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Administrator, if you could please take the roll call.
Commissioner Deitch. Present.
Councilor Droba.
Councilor Kraus.
Councilor Buller. Present.
Today I preside over this meeting because International Falls and the surrounding area are grieving. Mid-morning Friday, September 20th, the city administration learned of the passing of our colleague, neighbor, and friend, Mayor Robert Bob W. Anderson. Bob served our community in so many ways, but it is not just us that has been saddened by his passing. Mayor Anderson lived and breathed International Falls wherever he was, presiding in this chair next to me, representing us at the state capitol, or in Washington, D.C., working on our interests. Now all those people that he has touched are looking towards northern Minnesota, to this city, to join us in our condolences to Carol and family for their loss. Our administrator, Ken Anderson, will be a liaison to the family in these hard days and weeks to come. I ask you all to join me in a moment of silence for the Honorable Mayor Robert Bob W. Anderson. Thank you. Our first order of business tonight is to review, discuss, and adopt a resolution approving the 2020 preliminary budget for the International Falls EDA. The budget has been presented in committee. It has been laid out before us. The chair would accept a motion to accept the budget for the EDA.
So moved.
We have a motion by Councilor Kraus. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second by Councilor Deitch. Any discussion or any discussion on the budget for the EDA? Administrator, do you have any notes to add?
Mr. President and members of the Commission, nothing other than to note that the budget is relatively minimal for the EDA operations, actually, and we have $5,000 budgeted for professional services and office expenses, and that's the same amount as we had in 2019, so there's no increase.
All right, thank you. Any other discussion on the EDA budget? Hearing none, all those in favor of adopting the resolution for the budget, state by saying aye. Aye. All opposed? Motion carries unanimously. This will adjourn the International Falls Economic Development, and we will move into the special City Council meeting. Again, Administrator, please note the roll call. No need to redo the roll call. Our first item is to discuss and adopt the resolution approving the preliminary budget for the council. Would you like to walk us through that, Administrator?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I will do that. Again, the information that the council has before you consists of the following, and I'll walk through that briefly. First, there's a memo from me dated September 23rd to the council requesting approval of the preliminary budget and levy. There's also a draft resolution for you to consider adopting, and this particular resolution needs to be to the state of Minnesota prior to the end of the month. And again, this would establish a preliminary budget and levy for the City of International Falls. It further lays out a process for adopting the final budget and levy in December of 2019. And then the final sheet of paper that relates to this is an Exhibit A, which is a summary sheet to the resolution and identifies the expenditures and revenues by fund, and then some of our general appropriations and our levy and LGA history. I do want to take a few moments, if I may, just to walk through that briefly, and I'll principally be looking at my memo dated September 23rd. And this particular budget, again, was addressed in numerous meetings with the Budget and Finance Committee, which is a committee of the whole of the City Council. And as part of our deliberations, the City Council determined that for the preliminary budget, a 5% increase over the certified levy for 2019 would be appropriate. The total levy amount will be $2,931,036. Again, that's a 5% increase over what we levied in 2019. It's important to note, as part of this levy, that the City Council, between now and the time that we have to adopt a final budget and levy in December, the levy can be decreased, but it can't be increased once you set a levy at today's meeting. There will be a Truth in Taxation public meeting held, and there's a schedule in the proposed resolution which identifies the proposed date for that Truth in Taxation meeting being at 6 o'clock on Monday, December 2nd, and that would be immediately after a City Council meeting on the same date. And then typically, if there's any changes recommended in the budget as a result of public comment at the Truth in Taxation hearing, the City Council can direct the staff to do that, and then the final budget adoption would be proposed at our regular council meeting at 4:30 p.m. on Monday, December 16th. So that process, again, is outlined in the draft resolution. Another point to bring to the attention of the council and the public is that for 2019, the city received notification that through tax court settlement, the city was going to be receiving about $117,000 less in revenues from those revenues that we had budgeted for at the end of 18 for 2019, and that was certified to the state. And the reason for that loss of about $117,000 in revenues is that through the tax court settlement process, Menards and the overhead power lines elsewhere in Couchiching County resulted in a reduction in the taxes that they have to pay, and it resulted in a reduction of tax receipts to the city for this year. So we're seeing $117,000 less in revenues versus what we had originally budgeted for receiving in 2019. We're fortunate for local government aid in 2020. The legislature had adopted an increase in local government aid, and for the City of International Falls, that resulted in a 3.97% increase over the allocation that we received in 2019. And that dollar amount is $163,942. So that's a significant increase. And we're very thankful and appreciative to the Minnesota legislature for bringing the LGA amounts back to an amount that was received by communities as far back as 2002. So we're a big benefactor in the City of International Falls as part of the local government aid program. In fact, our local government aid monies from the state of Minnesota exceed by a significant amount the amount that we actually have to levy on our taxpayers. So we're very fortunate to be benefactors as part of the LGA program. This budget for 2020 includes a permanent improvement fund that has revenues of about $275,094, That's about $228,000 more than we budgeted for 2019. And again, those monies would be coming from our levy, and they would be directed towards various public improvement projects such as street improvements, curb and gutter, sidewalks, some of those other improvements that need to be done by the city. So we're seeing a significant increase over the monies budgeted in that particular fund as compared to 2019. I do want to point out that this budget, and that the committee acknowledges that the city is going to have to issue bonds in 2020 to finance some of our improvement projects. And right now we're looking at Highway 53 reconstruction project, where MnDOT's going to be moving forward with the reconstruction of that. In order for that project to go forward, we need to provide the local share of costs, which range from $1,450,000 to $1,750,000. So we're estimating that somewhere about $1.6 million. It's an average, but we do have to levy those dollars. Or I'm sorry, in order to provide the revenues for that, which the state will need in March or April of 2020, we're going to have to issue bonds to come up with that significant amount of money. And so the committee has recommended to the City Council that we use sales and use tax proceeds to pay off that bond issue 100%. So whatever our local share is going to be for the Highway 53 project, that would come from bonded indebtedness. The local improvement projects that the Public Works and Infrastructure Committee is working with our engineers to kind of develop over 2020 and 2021 potentially can be included in that bond issue. And then there's municipal state aid monies and projects on municipal state aid streets that we've identified, and they can be funded with advance encumbering MSA funds or using our state sales and use tax money. So the final decision on how big that bond needs to be will be something that the City Council will decide sometime between now and when the final budget is considered in December. But that's another important point, and by recognizing that, we were able to keep the levy to 5%. Another point I wish to draw to the public's attention as well as the council is that the Airport Commission is seeking state of Minnesota bonding money in the amount of $1,500,000. Now, that $1,500,000 is being requested to help offset the local share of costs that the city will have to pay as part of the local share of that improvement project, as well as the county's share of the local dollars that have to go into it. So right now we're estimating that each, the city and the county, would have to pay about $755,500 each based on engineering estimates to pay for our share of the costs over the next 3 years. If the legislature approves that state bonding money, then the local share will be essentially zero for both the city and the county. If they do not, then we're going to have to levy for those dollars over the course of the next 3 years. This budget includes money in the event that we would have to issue bonds to pay for our local share, which the committee is recommending that we do, that there's about $34,500 that would go towards our first bond payment in February of 2021, and then for the 2021 budget we can levy additional monies to pay the second payment that has to be made then. So that's an assumption that's gone forward with this particular budget as well. And then, again, the Budget and Finance Committee is familiar with this, but there's all the construction on the runway has to happen, obviously, in the summer months. And for 2020, the costs are estimated to be as high as $16 million. So we have to pay contractors first before we can seek our reimbursement request from the FAA and from MnDOT Office of Aeronautics. And then we have to wait a period of time before we receive those monies. So there's going to be a cash flow deficit. And in the event that we have to fund that, we may be looking at short-term bond issue of as little as 3 years to offset our costs over the Phase 2, Phase 3, and Phase 4 project of the airport runway reconstruction. And that's scheduled to be in 2020, 2021, and 2022. So this budget includes a nominal amount of $34,500 to make that first bond payment. And then there'll be monies included in the grant anticipation bonds to pay the grant off as those grant monies come in from the FAA and MnDOT. And then finally, since the committee had reviewed this budget, we followed your direction and we've included we had indicated that we needed to modify the city attorney budget. City attorney is requesting a $5 per hour increase for 2020. And then we've added additional monies in the budget for our labor attorney to do some consulting when we negotiate the 3 labor contracts that are expiring at December 31st of 2020. So we've added more money into the expenditures under the city attorney, but we had made a mistake in the Parks and Recreation Fund, so we offset it, and so there's no increase in the proposed levy. We're still at a 5% levy increase. And then finally, we made no changes to the appropriations at the council or at the committee's direction, so all the partnership agencies that have requested funding from the city will be funded in the amount that they requested in this preliminary budget. And we've also included an additional $5,000 to assist in promoting the 2020 census and making sure that we get a good turnout for the census, because a lot of our state and federal funding is based on census numbers and our population, and so we want to make sure we get a full count. So the council director, the committee directed that we include $5,000 in the budget, and that's been added into this preliminary budget as well.
Where was that 5,000 added in? I was looking for that myself.
Brad?
5,000 for what?
For the census, where did we put it?
It's underneath the mayor's budget.
Okay.
Communications.
Okay.
And then the final comment is that we talked about an existing ambulance fund deficit, and we haven't addressed that specifically in eliminating the budget. Right now it's a drawdown on the general fund, and the city council, as you know, increased rates for each run, both advanced life support and basic life support, effective in January 1st of 2019. And so we're monitoring the ambulance fund to see if that deficit's going down or increasing, and we'll be addressing that to one extent or another between now and December as well. So those are the preliminary background comments that I have. And again, we've passed around a copy of Exhibit A, which lays out where the particular funds are for our revenues and the expenditures. And you can see some of the history for what we're appropriating for various requests under appropriations on that Exhibit A. And you can see the levy history from 2012 through 2020, as well as the LGA history of receipts from 2014 through 2020. So with that, again, the council had scheduled this special meeting a couple months ago to act on the preliminary budget and levy, and we need to have it submitted to the state by the end of the month. So if there isn't any questions, we're looking for you to take action on the preliminary or the resolution approving the preliminary budget and levy.
All right, you've heard the city administrator give a background of the Budget and Finance Committee's work on the 2020 budget. The chair would accept a motion at this time to accept the preliminary budget and the levy increase of 5% for the 2020 budget.
So move.
We have a motion to accept the budget and the levy increase by Councillor Buller. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second by Councillor Deitch. Discussion? Thoughts on the process going through this year with first year our city councilors being on our budget committee?
What can I say? It's something very new. I was very surprised how all this works out.
Okay. Anything over here, guys?
It's not actually my second run through. Wanted to point that out.
Yeah, fair enough. Hearing no discussion on, no additional discussion on the preliminary budget and levy increase of 5%, the chair would call the question.
Aye.
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 And I'll vote yes. Motion carries 4-0. Our next item on the agenda is to appoint a maintenance worker for our maintenance worker 1 vacancies in our Public Works Department. Commissioner Brokaw.
So we have 2 vacancies in our maintenance, in the Public Works Department under the maintenance worker 1. One employee retired, another employee left for employment elsewhere. We had 25 applicants. We interviewed 4, and out of them 4 applicants, I recommend hire Nick Kittleson and Eric Drews at the 80%, or $21.95 per hour. We had a lot of good applicants, good interviews, and that's my recommendation.
What would the effective date be of the hires?
Once they, everybody had asked for 2 weeks.
Okay.
So if it's accepted, then I have a contact them with the start date to get their pre-employment visibility on the street. I've done background checks, both of them. I'm good there.
Okay,
Mr. Mayor,
please.
should we separate this into individual or?
That would be acceptable. I would accept a motion for either of the applicants at this time.
Just do them in order. I move that we hire Nick Kittleson at 80%.
We have a motion to accept Nick Kittleson for the position of Maintenance Worker 1. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second. Discussion? Hearing no discussion, I call the question,
Aye.
Aye.
and I'll vote yes. Motion carries 4-0. And the chair would accept a second motion for a secondary employee.
I move that we hire Eric Drews at 80% for the maintenance position.
We have a motion to accept Eric Drews as a Maintenance 1 worker at 80%. Second?
Second.
We have a second by Councillor Buller. Discussion,
Mr. Mayor,
please.
just want to say we trust your judgment, Ted.
Thank you.
Hearing no other discussion, question.
Aye.
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 And I'll vote yes. Motion carries 4-0. Thank you. And the third item on our special city council meeting this evening is to adopt a resolution declaring the vacancy to the elected position of mayor. I don't believe we need background on this. I would accept the motion at this time.
Out of respect, so move.
We have a motion to declare a vacancy to the elected position of mayor for the city of International Falls by Councillor Kraus. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second by Councillor Deitch. Discussion. I just want to say, before I got involved in this, I didn't know Mayor Anderson from anybody else on the street. I remember when I saw things happening in our community, and I just thought maybe I could help. I saw that our city council at that time had a little bit of decisiveness or indecisiveness and a little bit of heated meetings, and I thought, who better to ask than the mayor? And that was the first time I ever actually met Bob. He had came into the coffee shop a handful of times, and I really didn't know him well at all. And I just asked him if he thought that I would be able to fill a role. And he came into the coffee shop, and we had a cup of coffee, and we discussed it. And he said that he thought I would do just fine. I since then have had one opportunity outside of city meetings to ever have after I got elected, I was invited to his house for Christmas. He invited myself and Councillor Briggs after that election, and it was very nice. And I've always respected Mayor Anderson. I've disagreed with him from time to time. I have agreed with him. We've been in hot water with constituents from time to time. We've also been hailed very, very well for things that have happened. We've had discussions, and I owe a lot of credit to him to where I am today. I look at my life so many times in mentors, and I will always think of Mayor Anderson as a mentor, especially in the last year when he was able to allow me to help represent the city for our city sales tax and going down and speaking to the legislature for the good of the city. putting me in charge of certain committees that I didn't think at the time I would be able to handle. From day one being a city councilor, I became the EDA president and the head of the Budget and Finance Committee. I owe him a lot. I have a lot of respect for Mayor Anderson, and our community is going to miss him. Whether you liked Bob or you disliked Bob, Bob was always there. He put our community first, and with that being said, this is one of the hardest things to do. I never expected to see the chambers without him while I was here. So if nobody has anything else to add, I would call the question.
Aye.
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 And I would vote yes. 4-0. At this time, we have a vacancy at the position of mayor, and I would hand off the meeting to our city attorney to discuss where we go from here.
Mayor Pro Tem and Council, there is a vacancy by our charter. That vacancy is filled by the council. You need to do that at least within 60 days of declaring this vacancy. And a couple different ways to do it. There isn't any requirement. It can be done after you've sought applications to serve as mayor, or it can be done without any kind of application process. It's really your unlimited discretion as to how you proceed. I'm familiar, reviewed what City Administrator Anderson has put together with regard to the process, and I would agree with him and agree with his recommendations. And and that position of mayor could be filled. You could appoint somebody that's currently a council member, or you could appoint somebody that's not currently a council member. If you did appoint somebody that's a council member, then that would create a vacancy in that position, and then the council would appoint somebody to fill that vacant councilor's position. There wouldn't be a special election. The elections would come naturally, and for mayor, I believe that election would be in November of 2020. So the appointment as mayor would be for approximately 15 months if action was taken quickly.
Okay. So one of the concerns that I have moving forward in where we're at is time. In the event that one of the people on this board does not get appointed, we would then have 60 days to fill that position. If someone here does get appointed, we have another 60 days to fill that person's seat, correct?
Correct.
I am concerned on sometimes, and I have spoke with a couple of our councilors one-on-one about this. The concern I have is not having a full council by the end of the year. If we have the Highway 53 project, we have bonding that is being worked on, we have a municipal consent. I don't think we have a lot of things that are on our plate moving forward that is potential to be split votes. But if we don't have a full council to move us forward through these big things that we've been working through our Budget and Finance Committee and on our council, I think it makes the most sense to move faster, but I also understand the need to slow down for a second and respect the person who currently who priorly sat in that seat. however we handle this as a council, I would like to somewhat expedite the process and try to move to the point where by November we have a 5-person council. I spoke with the administrator. We've had that discussion too, just because you never know where we're going to go with all the projects that we have on our plate. So I would open up the floor to the rest of the council at this point on your thoughts of how we would proceed. Councillor Buller?
I would like us to proceed in a special meeting on September 30th
Okay.
and discuss this further at that time then.
Okay. Councillor Kraus?
I would agree with Councillor Buller's sentiment that we call a committee of the whole meeting on September 30th with a special city council meeting to follow to make a recommendation.
Okay.
I will follow along with that agreement.
If we have a committee of the whole meeting to have a discussion, and the discussion turns into having one of the seated city councilors to be the next mayor, my question would be to looking at our city charter section, I believe it's 74. Let me double check. No, section 75 of our city charter, and I just want to make sure that this is, if we go into a committee of the whole, section 75 of the city charter states, no member of the city council shall demand, request, or solicit any board, officer, or employee connected to the city to appoint any person to the position of said city, except that the councilors in open council meetings may make such request or solicitation. So would that be a fair time to have a discussion on one of us that would want to be mayor? Is in a committee meeting?
Yeah, well, I think so, and I think that I wouldn't see any prohibition from that occurring. A committee of the whole meeting versus at a council meeting, it really should be probably an agenda item. But if that's filling this is obviously an agenda item, it's a special meeting for that purpose. The fact that one or more council members would indicate a willingness to serve in that position, I don't think would violate our charter.
Okay. So if it,
Mr. Mayor, I could amend.
We don't have a motion on
I know
that.
we don't, but we could just have a special meeting. It doesn't have to be a committee of the whole,
Okay.
and that would eliminate the concerns in the charter. If it was just a special meeting, it would be an open public meeting anyway.
I don't think you need a committee of the whole.
Okay, sure.
And they're open to the public as well, but I mean, it might be cleaner just to call it a special city council meeting for the specific purpose of figuring out a path forward with the mayor position.
Okay. So if we're all in agreement that that is what we would like to do, I would accept a motion to have a special city council meeting on Monday, September 30th.
I so move.
We have a motion for a special city council meeting on Monday, September 30th at our normal time?
5 o'clock.
5 o'clock. Okay, we have a motion for a special city council meeting for the purpose of filling the vacancy of the mayor's position. Do we have a second?
I will second that motion.
We have a second. We have a motion and a second to have a special city council meeting on Monday, September 30th to discuss electing a mayor for the city of International Falls. Discussion?
Electing might not be the
Electing.
term. Appointing.
Appointing. I apologize. Appointing. Hearing no discussion, all those in question?
Aye.
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 And I'll vote yes. So we will have a special city council meeting at 5 o'clock on Monday, September 30th, to discuss appointing a new mayor for the city of International Falls. I thank all of you for coming in today. A special thank you to Representative Eklund for coming today. We do have some hors d'oeuvres if you'd like to stay after and have a snack. We would love for you to stop and stay and maybe share some stories of our late mayor. Thank you so much. This will adjourn the meeting for this evening.